to the point where any kind of criticism of any individual or group can be labeled cruel. And the whole point about humor, the whole point about comedy, and believe you me, I've thought about this, is that all comedy is critical. All humor is critical. If you start saying, oh, we mustn't criticize or offend them, then humor's gone. With humor goes a sense of proportion. And then as far as I'm concerned, you're living in 1984.
Going that way. I'm going to identify as a woman. We're going to be very politically correct. I'm going to identify as an Asian woman that wants to be a European man. So it's kind of I stay where I am. But in my head, we will do the journey of what it's like to be an Asian woman in a European man's body. Which you'll see, I eat a lot of ramen. It'll be a lot of Asian dishes, but it'll be subtle.
The online streaming service Netflix recently uploaded the iconic 90s American sitcom Friends, but it hasn't gone down well with a new generation of viewers who have expressed serious reservations about the show. So, will it stand the test of time?
We're 29, we're not women.
Someone taken her order yet? She did. He did. She? I'm sorry, I'm new. Then there are bisexuals, though some just say they're kidding themselves.
Political correctness has had a massive impact on this generation's shift in taste, making a comedian's job even harder to appeal and not offend. And for veterans of satire like Mel Brooks, it's pretty much the death of comedy.
We have become stupidly politically correct, which is the death of comedy. Comedy has to walk a thin line, take risks. Comedy is the lecherous little elf whispering into the king's ear. Always telling the truth about human behavior.
Even talk show hosts are running scared of getting their fingers burnt. People became so offended at the TV host Bill Maher's jokes, he introduced this feature.
Americans have got to learn how to take a joke. A few months ago, we introduced a segment called Explaining Jokes to Idiots.
Some comedians have even stopped performing for younger audiences altogether.
I have no interest in gender or race or anything like that, but everyone else is kind of with their little calculating, is this the exact right mix?
The difference between the generations right now is that people are being rewarded on social media for saying that they're offended by things, whereas back in the past, people would just kind of laugh it off or just kind of shrug it off or, turn off the television if they didn't like a show.
I don't remember his show being conservative politically, and that's, I think, what the story is here, is that it's being portrayed as conservative simply because it's not so annoyingly liberal.
Right.
Hollywood is so far left now, just being normal, which is what that show appears to be, normal common sense, is now right-wing. That's the
one with the homophobe, the sexist, and racist. Not your average title of a Friends episode, but according to millennials, it could be. When Netflix announced the award-winning sitcom would be uploaded to the streaming service, fans both new and old were thrilled. Only instead of enjoying the classic comedy, the younger generation have nitpicked reasons to be offended.
Netflix putting Friends in their top picks for you suggestions is straight up homophobic.
There is nothing I hate more than Ross in a male nanny episode of Friends. He is so sexist and homophobic, and I just want to jump into the TV and strangle him.
All the fat Monica jokes. I remember them so clearly. They used to follow me around in my head when I was a teenager and stopped eating. Thanks, guys.
Friends aired more than 20 years ago, and viewers would have molded the characters' changing perceptions of society. But apparently, in the eyes of millennials, the jokes of the iconic 90s show have not aged well.
I think you see a big disconnect from the perception that the media creates and the way people actually think. I think most people are actually much better at thinking critically and separating actual offenses from comedy than the media would have us believe. I don't buy it. I don't think it's real.
Seinfeld says some young people are too politically correct when it comes to comedy.
And he's calling out millennials for not being able to laugh. What's up with millennials?
Apparently he has some sort of problem with you.
The comedian made headlines when he said this during an ESPN radio show.
I don't play colleges, but I hear a lot of people tell me don't go near colleges. They're so PC. They just want to use these words. That's racist. That's sexist. That's prejudice. They don't even talking about.
Comedian Eddie Brill has been in the biz for more than 30 years.
Political correctness is awful. I mean, the word politics is in it, so automatically it's a bad thing.
He says it's taken the bite out of comedy, but hasn't noticed young people being any more PC than other groups.
I think you can't generalize about millennials. There are a group of millennials and a group of seniorials who just are, they can't stand art, and art has to be about them, and that's not the way art works.
22-year-old Jake Ellman says Seinfeld is right.
Agree completely.
Yeah? Tell me why.
Yeah, because it's comedy. It shouldn't be politically correct.
23-year-old Devin White disagrees.
I think it's a good thing that people are more mindful about where other people are coming from.
Now, if you're a big fan of Seinfeld's comedy, don't worry. He says political correctness hasn't stopped him from delivering jokes on issues he can make funny.
The British newspapers every day offend me with their laziness, their nastiness, and their inaccuracy. But I'm not going to expect someone to stop that happening. I should just simply speak out about it. You know, sometimes when people are offended, they want somebody to just come in and say, right, stop that, to whoever is offending them. And of course, as a former chairman of the BBC once said, there are some people one would wish to offend. And I think there's truth in that too. So the idea that you have to be protected from any kind of uncomfortable emotion is one I absolutely do not subscribe to. And a fellow that I helped write to books about psychology and psychiatry, he was a renowned psychiatrist in London called Robin Skinner, said something very interesting to me. He said, if people can't control their own emotions, then they have to start trying to control other people's behavior. And when you're around super sensitive people, you cannot relax and be spontaneous because you've no idea what's going to upset them next. And that's why I've been warned recently, don't go to most university campuses.
I do this joke about the way people need to justify their cell phone. I need to have it with me because people are so important. Right. You know, I said, well, they don't seem very important the way you scroll through them like a gay French king. It's just where you can kind of feel like an opinion. And they thought, what do you mean gay? What are you talking about gay? What are you saying gay? What are you doing? What do you mean? You know? And I thought, are you kidding me? I mean, we can't even.
Last week drew the wrath of the liberal website Media Matters, who said that their jalapeno flag cover was the sort of stereotype that ignores Latinos as a multifaceted community and relegates them to chili pepper consuming constituents. Hey, Media Matters, can I say one thing to you? Shut the fuck up. Look at this insane headline. College president forced to apologize after saying all lives matter. You know what happened? A college president sent out an email in support of the protesters in Ferguson, but said all lives matter instead of Black Lives Matter. And then had to apologize? I'm sorry, I meant Black lives. Fuck all lives.
All I know is that you've changed. Ever since you joined this PC thing, you just bully people and wait for people to say anything improper so that you can jump down their throats for whatever words he or she used.
He or she is an agenderphobic microaggression, Sharon. You are a bigot.
There are certain buzzwords that are instantaneous. They give you a knee-jerk reaction. Not enough diversity, which is a criticism that's often leveled against Hollywood. I don't. Everything is speculation. I don't know. It would have to be a
part of it is, and this is the dirty little secret, is that most movies are made now with an eye to the foreign market.
Well, that's true.
And Asians really are racist.
Unlike you, for instance, right? You just said they're racist. That makes you racist.
You're going to stoke a ton of outrage now.
No, I'm just honest. But they are.
I just feel like, it gets real heavy and deep here, obviously. I do agree with Sarah where, on one hand, it's in comedy, I do the same thing. There's things in I do, and you take risks in comedy, and Richard Pryor did, and everyone does, and you kind of offend just to shake people up, and that's the way it is. Some people get hurt, and some people like it, and you move on, but it is comedy. You're not seriously saying these things. If you were on a talk show just saying, I really believe this, and these are, and this is what I think, then I think it's more offensive. The other thing is I get offended of I see black comics talk about Whitey, and I know it's not as rough as Chink or the N-word, but I don't like that either, and they can do that night and day. I mean, Chris Rock, who's a great friend, can say,
here's the difference.
The white man makes toast like this, and he's an idiot, but the black guy. I mean,
but you know what, Ray? I have a question. My mom taught me when I was younger, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. And why do you think that it's important? Why do you think that's important to mudsling and have these words that obviously touch the hearts and souls of so many people of America being said when we're taught something different as a child? Could you explain that to me, and why do you think your success is based off of that?
Well, I'm at least talking about policy. You have a position on what people's names should be. Watermelondria. I mean, you'll insult people for their names. I'm talking about a government policy that affects all Americans and immigrants and the people living here and is harming our country. So you don't follow it.
Are you against?
I didn't ask you okay.
Are you?
You may think it's crazy, that's your opinion, I respect that, but obviously there are appropriate ways to use these terms. Lame has an appropriate usage when one isn't able to use their legs. Gay has an appropriate usage when one identifies as homosexual. An inappropriate way to use those words is one that isn't in the proper definition, in a way that afflicts some marginalization upon some outside group that isn't you.
I think that what we're teaching a lot of the kids in college is that oversensitivity and perceived victimization is a path toward reward and virtue. That the more you feel as though you're oppressed, the more people are going to sympathize with you and give you what you want. I think that's a bit of a mistake. I think it'd probably be better off just teaching people not to take everything quite so seriously. That said, I of course understand the value of words. I just think that I do wonder at University of Wisconsin, they use words like privileged, obviously, and that's obviously a buzzword. And if you use words like white privilege, which is extraordinarily common on campuses like UW, then I would assume that that's okay. But white privilege is a way of shutting down debate from white people, because then the assumption is that if you're white, then you must be somebody who can't speak properly on any other issues except for white people issues. I mean, all of these words. How about this? How about we just have an open debate on all of this stuff, and stop attempting to shut down the terminology that's used per se. Perhaps the best solution is for everyone to man up a little bit and get over it. I mean, honestly, I don't know what you're training kids to do other than become paranoid about the language that they're using and the language that is used about them.
Social justice, 1, 2, 3. I wanna be PC. It's just the way to be for me and you. Your hateful slurs are through. I call wee-wee on you. We'll fight until you're PC black and blue. We are language police, fighting bigotry. Hurtful words can suck our turds, cause it's PC for me and you. Yeah!